Good afternoon, everyone. Scouse Bandit here. Hope you're all doing okay. It's not very nice today. It's a bit of a wet one and it's cold. Let me just move this neck buff from my mouth. It's speaking with it in my mouth is not easiest, but there you go. Hopefully that's a bit better. It's a bit cold today. That's what I wanted to talk a little bit about today. It's about riding in wet weather, in conditions like this, where it's proper winter riding. It's cold, the roads are wet, slippy, there's debris and there's mud and there's leaf litter and there's all kinds of things all over the road. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about riding in those conditions and the actual benefits of doing that, as opposed to those who ride just in the spring and the summer, which again, I'm not criticizing. It's each to their own. It's whatever people want to do. And if people want to ride in the nice weather, in the dry weather, or when they think that the roads are going to be in a better condition, then that's up to them. And maybe it's because the bike is their pride and joy, and they keep it in fantastic condition, and they don't want to take it out on filthy, dirty, wet roads full of salt and grime and get their pride and joy messed up. And again, I can understand that, because my bike is my pride and joy, and part of me hates riding in these conditions, because I actually sit here thinking, no, my bike's getting dirty. No, I've got to wash it again. So I can kind of understand a little bit how people might feel about riding in these conditions. However, I think the benefits of riding in these conditions far outweigh the negatives. And I'm going to share with you why I think that over the next couple of minutes. So the first reason, I think, is because, quite simply, it's time on the bike. You can't beat time on the bike for gaining experience. Now, you never ever stop learning. So whether you've been riding your bike for 5 minutes, 5 years, 25 years, whatever, you never stop learning how to ride. It's like you never stop learning really how to drive. You're always gaining through various experiences that you might have on the road. And it's the same with riding. More so on a bike than in a car, because there's an awful lot more to learn. There's an awful lot more going on when you're riding a bike. So time on the bike is absolutely crucial. And by that, I also mean not just riding for adding up the hours and clocking up the time, but also time on the bike all year long. For those who only ride in the summer or the spring, you're missing out on lots of time during the winter when you could have been riding. And because of that, when you do get back on your bike, you're ring rusty. And the skills that you perhaps had at the back end of the summer, when you put your bike into hibernation, have gone a bit rusty and a bit tired. And when you do get back on in the spring, it takes a bit of time to get those skill levels back up to what they were. But they only ever get back to what they were, really. You never really develop much further than that. So time on the bike, I think, is massively important, as it keeps the skill levels high, but also enables you to develop further. The second reason that I think riding in these conditions is good is the skill factor. You have to learn how to handle wet, greasy roads that are not in good conditions, roads that have got debris all over them. When the tires are cold and struggling to get temperature in, it's a completely different style of riding. You have to learn to use engine braking a lot more than relying on the ham-fisted brakes. You've got to learn to judge the road a lot more. and your positioning on the road has to be much more accurate. You've got to learn to actually look miles ahead to see where the traffic's braking or what's going on, but at the same time being aware of the road surface right in front of you. You know, any leaf or debris, anything on the road surface, you've got to be aware that you can maneuver around that. So the skill factor of actually being able to ride to these conditions, of actually knowing how to brake in these conditions, knowing that you can apply this much pressure on the brake before the wheels begin to lock up, is important. And to learn those in these conditions helps hugely when it comes to riding in the better weather. Not only is it about braking, but also about cornering. Your skill levels increase hugely through riding in the winter, going around a corner. Because sometimes when the ground's a bit wet and a bit slippery, you know, you're a bit cautious about going around bends, a bit, you know, worry about, am I going to lose it on this bend or not? And that just comes through experience. The more you ride in these conditions, the more confidence you gain through going around bends. And actually, you know, with a good set of tyres nowadays, you can go around bends in the wet very well. There's no reason why you can't ride and have an enjoyable ride around, you know, around bendy, twisty roads in the wet. There's ample grip. It's just finding it and knowing how to feather the throttle correctly so that you're not going to cause yourself problems. So the third reason I think it's important to ride in all weathers is the confidence it gives you to actually know that you can handle your bike in bad weather. It does give you a confidence in your own ability and in your own riding. And that's really important when it comes to the good weather and the spring. Because actually, we've all been there, haven't we? Where we're out, you know, on a nice day's ride and we get caught in horrific weather, you know, because let's be honest, we live in the UK. And, well, some of us do. And in the UK, the weather can turn quickly. And, you know, you can have a gorgeous day, and then all of a sudden the clouds gather and it can be bucketing down before you know it. And having had the winter's experience of riding in all weathers and in wet weather, that doesn't faze you. Well, I've got friends who I know, people who I've spoke to, who actually only ride in the good weather, who really don't like the wet weather. And they get really nervous about riding in the wet and in the rain. And that's purely because it's just a lack of experience. Whereas if you'd have ridden throughout the winter, then you gain those skills, you gain that experience, and you gain that confidence. So I think really the fourth reason is because it makes you a much more accomplished rider. All round, you become a smoother, better rider. You know, sometimes you can get away with being heavy-handed on the throttle in the good weather. You know, when the roads are dry and warm and your tyres are sticky, you know, you can get away with a lot of stuff, a lot of erratic riding, which you just can't get away with in the winter. So I think by riding in the winter, you become a smoother, altogether more accomplished rider as well. And the fifth reason that I think it's important to ride in all weathers is a bit of a silly one, really, but just let this fella it. Bit of a silly one, really. It's to do with finance. You might be thinking, what? Well, what I mean by finance is we spend an absolute fortune on quality motorcycle clothing. And actually, if we only ride in the good weather, we never use it to its full extent. And you're never actually testing that product for what it's designed to be used for. It's a bit like buying something that's really nice and sticking it on a shelf and only using it once a blue moon. When in reality, what we need to be doing is using that gear day in, day out, and getting our money's worth out of it and using it properly. Because that only then helps manufacturers in their reviews and the feedback that people give. It helps the manufacturers to actually improve their quality of their garments, to improve the quality of their products, so that for future things are getting better each time. So the waterproof membranes, the actual quality of the motorcycle clothing, whatever it is, the protection element is improving all the time. And it's only because of people who are riding all weathers who are able to give that feedback. That helps these product engineers, product designers and manufacturers to then go ahead and make their products accordingly. So that's the fifth reason. And that'll be the final reason. So there's probably loads more that I haven't thought about. To be honest, as I set out this morning, I wasn't thinking about doing that. It was just that the weather turned, so I thought it got me thinking about riding in the wet weather. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you might add to that list, what other reasons you might give for riding in all weathers, or perhaps the reasons you might not ride in all weathers. But anyway, let me know what you think, and I'll look forward to reading your comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I shall see you soon with another video. Until then, it's been the Scouse Bandit. Catch you later.